Yeah, it has. Okay, so I think the volume's high enough. Welcome everybody to the first, let me check my notes, of the page, a Future of Comics gathering at Nerd Mill Theater inside Meltdown.
Give yourselves a big hand. Hey.
For people at home, we created a hashtag off the page. If you have questions that we may get to, use that, please. And on stage we have Doug Leffler, Mike from Scroll On, there you go. Correct me as I go down the line. Michael Son from Tapastic.
That's me.
Did I get that one?
Yeah.
Mark Wade, who originally reached out about this event. I'm very excited to have him here, and the fact that he's behind all of this from Trailbent.
Thank you. Don't feel like you have to hold. If you started to applaud,
Keep
you stop.
Keep clapping the whole time. And Felix Keener from Comics Fix.
Thank you.
Branding well displayed over there. I like it. All right, so to make this fair, I'm a comic book store retailer. I have a brick-and-mortar space. They are working towards the future of comics and getting the word out to people that don't have comic book stores in their neighborhoods. I figure I bring in Adam Silverstein, who is our Chief Experience Officer at Meltdown, to lead the questions. He has years of experience, and I will be sitting with them, answering and seeing how I could, I don't know, further the conversation.
You're just afraid.
No. I'm in love with
You're afraid of the future.
I got questions.
There you go.
Excellent.
Thank you, Gaston. Thank you. Gaston has obviously been the visionary of Meltdown Comics to allow this kind of stuff to happen, so I would like to give you a personal hand. Thank you, sir.
Let's do this. Yes.
Well then, Gaston, real quick, let me just ask you, digital comics, what is this? Tell me your fears, and then we're going to get to the panelists here to find out how they can hopefully help you ease your fears.
All right. So Mike somewhere. Let's see. Digital comics. I've had a blind hatred for them. 10 years. I refuse to even look at them online or find out what they exist.
Don't sugarcoat it.
No.
Okay.
It's a fact. I talk about them all the time, and then Mark reached out. I started doing my research 10 years in, and I found out that it's a good thing. And there's a lot of voices, technology, and access for so many people that want to create that just can't print or have huge, I don't know, web presences, and they just didn't know how to get the voice out from books that already existed. Now there's platforms for that, and it's good at the end because people will eventually go to stores or buy online, and we all rise as store retailers and creators because of all of these new technologies. So I like them now.
All right. So, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe somebody else on the panel has better facts than I do, but I think what has been proven is that the advent of digital comics has actually improved the health of a lot of comic book stores.
Well, yeah, there's
It's
no,
increased sales.
yeah, Diamond does its seminars and they do their white papers every year and stuff, and nothing, the major distributor of comics, and there's been absolutely no data that says that digital is eating into comics. If anything, comic sales continue to rise. Right. And so therefore it's we're being able to work hand in hand. That's great.
Convinced.
All right. Well, let's explore a little bit. But Mark, why don't you tell us what this is? Why are we here? What this is kind of, you reached out to us, and let's hear what
because
you think.
These guys reached out to me and we reached out to each other. It's all reaching out. We are basically the Digital Comics Coalition. We are, rising tide floats all boats. The idea is that with Thrillbent, we have an audience. Is it as big an audience as we would want it to be? Not yet, but we're getting there. Scroll On, same thing. Same with Tapastic, same with Comics Fix, same with a lot of other smaller publishers. Madefire approached us. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here today at the last second. So thank you for Madefire for sponsoring. Anyway, Panel Syndicate, which Brian Vaughn and Marcos Martin are doing. They're also interested in being part of this as well. It's still fairly embryonic. It's still forming, but basically it's this idea of let's be transparent. Let's share what we've learned with each other and with the audience, and be receptive to our audience in terms of what they want to see, not so much in terms of content, but what do we do to get the word out? What do we do to get the message out? It's the good news about the internet is that there's 7 billion potential customers out there. The bad news is that, you know, we're small companies and we're trying to get the word out to 7 billion people. And the more we can work together and help cross-promote each other's material, each other's platforms, so you know, what other sort of events we can have like this that helps get the word out that, you know, this is legitimate media. This is a new emerging media that we're all really excited about. The response has been great. We just got to we got the content. We just need to get the word out.
So each platform is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You guys all represent different platforms, so why don't we just go down the line? I guess maybe we could start with Felix over there.
Sure.
And Felix, tell us a little bit about what Comics Fix is, what the platform is, what your ideas are behind it, a little bit. Give
Absolutely.
the audience some idea.
Yeah,
Please.
so Comics Fix, it's basically a library, an expanding library of comics in almost every kind of on the from indie to bigger guys, all different genres and ages, and all of it is available for a very low cost every month. So it's like $9 today, and it's built from my personal need as a creator to have a platform where I can reach more audience. So I did a few comic books myself. I found that this experience on Kickstarter to reach new audience it's amazing. So I thought back then when I started Comics Fix, there was nothing like that really. Today we have more competition, but no Netflix for comic books was really available for indie guys. There was a Marvel Unlimited, still is very popular, but not independent creators. And we saw how well it been received, the idea by people, by creators, and we receive every day something new, something incredible, something to be discovered, something to be read by many people from not from America only, but from around the world, from UK, India, Ireland, Israel even. So there's apparently a lot of people who do comic books, and they're amazing, and they look for audience. And I think this kind of a micropayment when you get to pay little by many, it's something to be explored, and that's what we're trying to do.
So real quick, by a show of hands out in the audience, how many people actually have read a digital comic? Okay,
God.
so this
Thank God.
I know.
that's a pretty good response.
Pretty good response.
Has anybody in the audience not read a digital comic? That's even a better response.
That is a
Yeah.
great response. Gaston raised his hand. So I wonder just if we could talk a little bit about, before we get, as we keep on going, but a little bit, what is the digital comic format versus web comics? Is it the same thing? Because maybe there's people out in the audience in the internet world that might not know what the differences are. For me, you know, it's comicsology. I go in, I get a comic book, and it's a Marvel comic. I read it that way, scroll panels. Sometimes they have an infinite platform. But, I mean, I want to know what makes you guys different from that. So, Felix, real quick before we get to Michael, can you just tell us what makes you different, or what makes Comics Fix unique? Why do we want to go check it out?
Well, it's very affordable in terms of in the price. You can read so many books and discover stuff. And also our technology is a little kind of works on I'll show it a little later, but even the things you mentioned, the panel, it's all crowdsourced. So my team doesn't do that. the paneling. Our creators do. We allow that. And,
But you also, I mean, you also augment pages, which I thought was really cool. Like, for instance, you'll have a page of one of my comics on your site, but there's technology in your app where you can actually have a little recording that comes along that like is a little sort of audio commentary on the comic, or you can have sound effects, or you can build effects into the comic that don't duplicate what the silent experience of the printed page.
Absolutely.
That was really cool.
We give a creator, even user, because it's our crowdsourcing paneling, it's open to everybody. So if you are a reader and you want to experience your book differently and share it with your friends, you can do that. Panel is just a basic thing. You can add special effects. You can add audio effects. You can record your voice to share it with everybody. And from that to make a comic book into a game is just a few steps away. So you can make a trivia game out of your comic book. So the interaction between your creation as a publisher and the audience is increasing by a lot.
And what's really, if I may, what's really interesting is that taking your mic away. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, please.
It's really interesting the way it fell out, the way we just randomly sat in order up here, is that you really run the spectrum from Comics Fix. That's very close to the printed comic experience, at least as it looks on the page. And it's basically taking what is a printed comic and augmenting what is already there. Whereas as you go further, as we'll talk about as we go further down the panel, everybody's approach is a little bit further away from there. Like, how would you describe Tapastic in terms of what you guys do or show or whatever?
Well, Tapastic is an open platform for both creators and readers. It's all free to use. We have a specific emphasis on the mobile format, so being mobile friendly, being able to read on your phone or a tablet. So what we do is we scroll vertically, so you scroll down. It feels like a very natural reading flow.
Yeah.
So it's very different from a printed comic page.
Yeah.
It's a very digital only sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I would say. Do you want to show a little bit here? Can we? Or
Yeah, let's do it. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do that.
Just jumping to the tech demo? Or?
Why don't
Sure.
you show them,
Yeah.
see if I can get yours up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is our Android app. Our iOS app is coming in very shortly. So as you can tell, I'm just scrolling down, and it's a very sort of seamless experience where there are sometimes panels, sometimes there's no panels. This one is sort of stacked vertically rather than horizontally. Sort of the antithesis of what you would see in like a Sunday paper.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the aesthetic of the site. And so we feel like this works very naturally in terms of how you consume content these days. Like think about Facebook or Tumblr or any news article. You're just scrolling down and reading, consuming content. And we sort of felt like we should jump on this as a form factor
Yeah.
in terms of comics, and differentiating ourselves from what you can do on a page and what you can do digitally.
Yeah.
This is their website for
Yeah.
Tapastic.
Excellent.
Want to see?
so, Michael, that's free?
Yeah, this is all free to read, and free to host.
And so what, you would just sign up, go on there, open an account, and then you have access to all the product or all the issues and content that you have?
Exactly, yeah.
How does that make money?
We have some other ways of making revenue. We have a premium section, so like if you're a creator and you have a series that's already completed, you can sell it for like $1 to $3. We have a support program where you, the reader, can directly support creators on a monthly recurring basis, and in return, the creator will give you like personalized perks, like a signed autograph or a personalized comic. We also have a lot of collaborations with video game companies and whatnot. So there's a lot of ways to make money as an independent creator that we have built a platform to sort of synergize with. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, Mark, do you want to go or do you want to?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about ThrillBent. I mean, what we did about 3.5 years ago, my business partner John Rogers and myself, we really got frustrated with the print mechanics of things. We love print comics, and I will always have a foot in print comics. That's still my bread and butter. But the logistics of, and this as a store owner, you're just trying to sell a brand new comic. This is before the image gold rush of the last year or so, where but before, we're talking 3 or 4 years ago, it was very hard to sell an independent comic, and very hard for a creator, unless you were doing something big for Marvel and DC, to even make your print costs back, much less get any sort of profit whatsoever on your comic. So the thinking was, well, let's just figure out a way to flip-flop the dynamic, go to digital first, figure out a way to recoup your costs there because print was such a huge part of your budget, and then worry about print down the line. Now, what that led us to was thrillbent.com. And we've got a little app here I can show you. The future of comics, by the way, is going to be much closer to your face than this is, I promise you. But basically with Thrillbent, it's akin to what they've been doing, but we work specifically with things that you can do only in digital. For instance, we use the whole screen. We use landscape exclusively for 95% of our material because that's how we see the world. We don't have one eye on top of each other and we don't see the world in a vertical way. This is the way, the fact that most print comics are in portrait format is it's a holdover from books, it's a holdover from print media. But with something like Thrillbent, where we can actually, again, you're just swiping like you would a comic book page, you're just turning the page, but you're able to do interesting things. You're able to have, give almost the illusion, if you will, of animation, but not really, where you can have new elements pop up in the screen, new balloons pop up, new, weird rack focus moments or whatever, things that you can do only in digital that you can't do in print. And that's what I'm proudest of about Thrillbent. We've got in excess of 300 comics that we've done over the last 3.5 years, and we update the site 3 or 4 times a week with new material. We were free for a long time. We got tired of shoveling all our money into the furnace. And so we, a little while ago, adopted a model by which there's always free material on the site, but for a $3.99 subscription a month, which is the price of one monthly comic, you get access to like the two weekly comics that I do. You get access to all our back catalog. You get access to all the other comics that we're updating, like I said, 3 or 4 times a week. And we thought that was a fair model. I prefer free as a reader and as a guy who purveys it because I like getting the word out. But people find that for $3.99, they feel like that's the price of one comic. They seem pretty comfortable with that.
Right. Are you able to track, obviously you're able to track the number of people who pay and the subscribers. Are you actually able to track the number of times a comic book is read?
Yes, absolutely. And so that's kind of how the subscription model works, is that we, at the end of the month, we look and see how many people read your comic, how many people read my comic, and we take that subscription revenue and we divvy it up among the creators.
So you could even tell if they left off at page 5?
Yeah.
And is that the same with Michael and Felix too?
Yeah, absolutely. We are tracking everything, page counts. This is how we pay to our creators.
Yeah, we have a very robust tracking system for who does what and how.
Anyway, so as I was saying, as we go down, we're going to the panel, we're talking about how we're each adapting to digital in a different way. Like, again, I'm doing stuff that specifically is made for digital, and I'll worry about print later because you can't duplicate a lot of this stuff in print. I think Doug took it a step even further when I met you, about 2 years ago, and you were showing me about Scroll-On, which I thought was an even more interesting and dynamic way of using the digital space.
Scroll-On actually has a long gestation period. I was fortunate enough to, right out of high school, be entered into the character animation program at California Institute of the Arts, and I was there the very first year that it was in existence. And one of my professors took us on a field trip to the Los Angeles Museum of Art, and he got out a Chinese scroll painting. And this painting was a landscape, like started in a village, and then it traveled into a forest and went past a lake and up a mountain. And we would unroll a section of it and look at it, study it, and then roll it up and unroll the next section of it. And it took us, I'm guessing, about 25 minutes to get through the whole thing. And as we were rolling it back up again, I had to look around the room and remind myself where I was, because the experience of seeing an image unbroken that just kept moving was so absorbing and compelling. And I immediately thought, well, what if you actually added characters and dialogue and conflict to this? As soon as I could find a big roll of paper, I started to draw my first comic book without any pages. And I got far enough along to convince myself it would work and it was a great idea. And reality started to set in. Now, this was the mid-'70s,
And no one was making books that were 30 feet wide.
yeah, basically, yeah. There was no iPads, there were no smartphones.
You were carrying around little Torahs.
And I experimented with some of that too, but I could not think of a practical way to publish something that was 6 inches by 50 feet long.
Yeah.
So I set it aside. And then about maybe 5 years ago, when I was exploring the idea of doing digital comics, I remembered this idea. So I didn't do this idea because I was looking for something specifically to do digitally. This is something I had wanted to do because it seemed to me like it could be an amazing art form in and of itself. Now, it just so happens that it fits really well onto a computer screen. And with a program, you can actually stitch images together and tell a story in a very unique way. One of the byproducts of that is it actually fits every screen.
Yeah.
And a problem I know is like you would have, when you started with Thrillbent, you had to pick an aspect ratio. for
Exactly,
that.
yeah, right.
The problem with that, and a lot of people pick the iPad aspect ratio, but within the iOS ecosystem, they have at least 3 different aspect ratios now.
Yeah.
So, and it's impossible in most cases to
Yeah.
fit all of them. But can you?
Yes, by all means, yeah.
So this is what Scroll-On looks like now. So this is one of our stories, if you can see, and you read it by either just scrolling through, and the story just continues on, or you can tap the screen and it'll move to a predetermined anchor point. And what's fun about that is that this fits this size screen, it fits that
Yeah.
size screen, and it'll fit anything that's rectangular.
Yeah.
So, and it also maximizes all of the screen real estate.
Right, you don't have to do that thing that makes me insane about zooming in, zooming out.
Yeah.
You're using all of the real estate at once.
And we keep, as simple as this is, and it astonished me when I first started showing this to people, that nobody came up to me and said, oh yeah, so-and-so did that 10 years ago. And I keep finding, as simple as this is, new ways of making use of it. Like, for instance, this is one of my older stories, but there is a point in this story that has these characters that are going to the center of the earth, and I wanted them to start drilling down. So I had inset these panels where we would see the drill start to go into the ground. And that's kind of cool. It tells the story. But if you are tapping it, if you're a tapper instead of a scroller, it does this, where it basically animates down. And then another thing that we realized that we could do, because sometimes a vertical format works better than a horizontal format. In this case, we had these guys that are going to the center of the earth. So we started to reconfigure the dialogue boxes to motivate people to do this. And now the story can change directions. Now, the beauty of this is it is kind of its own art form. It works really well on a screen like this. The bad part of it is that you have to create content for this medium. You
Right.
can't just repurpose content.
Right, yeah, you can't just take an issue of Detective Comics and turning it into that, no.
Early on, I was interviewed when I first started this, and I talked about something I believe Scott McCloud said, correct me if I'm wrong, that the timing in comics is hidden between the gutters
Yeah.
and the panels. This is kind of analogous like in filmmaking. It's the timing is in between the edits.
Right.
It's what you leave out is as important or more important than what's in. Scroll-On doesn't have the gutters in between panels.
Right.
And yet, when you read a story, it has a very palpable sense of timing.
Yeah.
But the timing is more like music.
Yeah.
And so I said because of that, it convinced me that Scroll-On is not technically actually a comic anymore. It's something new.
Yeah.
When this interview came out, the headline was something like, Doug Leffler says Scott McCloud is wrong. That wasn't what I said. I agreed with him. I said that was smart. That was accurate. But, yeah, so that's Scroll-On.
So what kind of content do you have on Scroll-On?
For a long time, all of the content was mine. So I was the inventor of Scroll-On, the CEO of Scroll-On, the janitor for Scroll-On, and the chief content creator for Scroll-On. Other people now, notably Mark Moretti, who's sitting in the audience, who've worked with Valiant in their previous heyday, is doing a wonderful story called Robot World now. We're actually we're doing a licensing deal with a publisher, and I don't believe I can talk about it
Okay.
yet, but hopefully I can make the announcement official. So you'll start to see it appear in some other places as well.
And then how many different comics do you have on Scroll at any given time?
Currently, I believe that as of Monday, we will be up to 7.
Nice, not bad for one guy in his
Well, that's
garret. Yeah,
that's
you guys
including
are big.
Mark's story.
All right,
So I
so
get
two
6
guys,
of them.
okay,
Mark,
yeah.
Mark is working on his.
And how does the subscription service work for Scroll On?
There isn't a subscription service. We've actually just been doing downloads. Like we have some content that's free, and then you can just download the chapters for 99 cents.
Okay.
But it's very likely I'm going to change that and actually make everything available for free. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense on the surface economically, but I've been finding that there are other ways you can actually make money. And one of the primary advantages of doing digital comics for me, or this kind of platform, is being able to get feedback on what works and what doesn't. So I love it as a way of developing content. And just by looking at how many people download something tells me which story is connecting with people,
Yeah.
resonating. So that has an inherent value.
Very good. So we had one question I just thought from I guess from the internet.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. It was, and anyone can ask questions, hashtag off the page.
Yeah.
But the question to all the users, or to all the panelists, was how many users do you each have? Maybe start with Felix and go down the line.
Not a lot. We are too young to be. We have a lot of free users. They are our publishers, our press, a lot of industry people, but actually paying people, I can't tell you exactly what, but it's too soon to kind of like take account.
Yeah, we have over 4,000 creators and over 6,000 series and a ton of readers.
Right. So
Yeah.
10 okay.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
I with Thrillbent we passed 500,000 individual users like some time ago. I honestly haven't kept up for a while because I've been looking more at the subscription model, which again is okay. Not the numbers we'd like it to be, but it continues to grow the more content we put on there. What's amazing to us about the subscription model is that while the numbers aren't where we want it to be, the drop off is almost negligible. Like once people sign up month to month, it's not even a recurring thing. You sign up. I mean, you can set up a recurring payment, but we're not asking you for 6 months in advance. We ask you month to month, and the number of people who come and then leave and don't come back is amazingly tiny.
That's great.
That's great. And you, sir?
I'm guessing we probably have the smallest following of any of the group here. Count ours in the thousands instead of in the
But
tens
growing.
of thousands.
But
But
again,
growing.
this is-
And largely is that because nobody in the comics community knows who the heck I am
Well,
or
that's
means anything.
the whole point of the Digital Comics Coalition, isn't it? Really?
Now,
Yeah.
if Mark Waid was writing a scroll-on story,
I don't know.
That could be the next deal.
That could be the next deal.
we'll talk about that after
Yeah.
the podcast.
So, how is digital comics a natural progression from print comics? Maybe you could talk about that, Felix.
I'm very new to comics at all. So I was born in Russia. We didn't have comic books, so I've been reading comics digitally, mostly, because was the most affordable way to do that, and also I didn't know exactly what kind of entry point would suit me, so I went on the internet. Whatever I found, I read, and so I bought paper comics, of course, but I really attached to digital format more. I guess if I was born here and been introduced as a young reader to paper, that would be different. But I can't speak of any kind of like from experience about paper. But what I represent really people who new to comics, and so in terms of entry point, in terms of getting introduced to comics, digital is really have those channels created by us. They are the future to the key to bring the non-comic readers to the fold.
Yeah, it's also a natural sort of progression in terms of comic creators. There are like no barriers to entry if you're making a digital comic, and I'm sure many of you in the audience have a story to tell. And you know, at Tapastic, we wanted to create an open platform where anyone can sort of join, create a story, and build an audience. And there's like, you know, there's no upfront cost other than, you know, you
Sweat
putting
equity,
the
that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I think digital opens a lot of frontiers. And in fact, you know, digital can be seen as a proof of product to sort of print something digitally into a physical product. Yeah. So, you know, it's like it's a two-way street. It's a natural progression.
Have you guys done that, Michael? Taken some of the digital stuff, put it into a print format?
Yeah, a couple of the artists on the site run Kickstarters every year and to sort of collect their digital product and put it out in a physical format.
Yeah, we started doing that with Thrillbent as well. We cut a deal with IDW not too long ago. Actually, Dynamite did one of our series, The Animation of Charlie Wormwood. They did that as a 5-issue mini. And then IDW was doing Empire and Insufferable and some of the other stuff on the site. And it's really an interesting technical challenge to take this stuff that I said, oh, I'll worry about how it's going to print later. Let's do digital first and worry about it, and then sort of retrofitting it into print. Without it just sort of looking like screen after screen after screen and having a little bit of dynamism to it. But that's the trade-off, and it is worth getting in there. And with Empire in particular, the artist went back and redid some pages and redid a lot of layouts just to make it work a little bit better on a digital or rather on a printed page, because comics is comics, but it is two different media. The other thing I would real quickly say about the progression from digital or from print to digital or differences, and this is something that we talk a lot about, is that when I hand you a print comic, the only place I can actually hold that for a second.
Sure.
The only place I can surprise you as a reader is on the upper left-hand corner of the page, right? You turn the page, and then that's the only shock moment or the only thing that can surprise you. The rest of the spread is right there in front of you. You're seeing it with your peripheral vision. With digital comics, you don't know what's coming next. Every swipe of the screen, you can have something new and interesting happen, and that's just it's a little tiny thing, but you'd be surprised at how effective a storytelling tool it is.
So comics are comics, and digital comics are digital
They're
comics.
digital comics, and
it's a separate thing.
They have a lot. They have one thing in common. They have besides the obvious, the writing art, is the basic craft of it. For my money, and I think we're all pretty much in agreement on this here, whether it's on the digital screen or whether it's on the printed page, it's comics if you decide the pace at which the story is told. If you're the one turning the page, if you're the one reading the words, the moment that you introduce sound effects or recorded dialogue or anything or limited animation into that medium, it transforms. It's not fully comics anymore. It's because you're seizing the control of the flow of time from the reader, and it's not as an immersive experience. Suddenly, it's a very passive experience. So there's other people's mileage may vary, but that's always been my North Star when it came to how much you can do digital and how much you can push digital. At the same time, never to the point where the reader doesn't feel like they're in control of the reading experience. Mm-hmm.
Doug?
I think that's a very important point, too, is that I think we're all kind of committed to reading as an active rather than a passive experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a background in filmmaking and in animation, but I don't think a comic book should become a bad animated film, which is what can so easily happen.
This can so easily happen, yeah.
The comparison I like to make, though, is the film theater comparison, that the film and theater have a lot in common, but they are two inherently different mediums. And if you go and sit in a theater and watch a play, you can have a beautiful transformative experience. If you got out of your seat, put a camera there in your place, filmed exactly what you would have seen, come back and saw that projected onto a movie screen, it would be dead. It would be boring. It would be lifeless. Film is an inherently different experience than theater, and it requires a different set of languages. Yeah. And what Mark was saying about how with the digital comics you can surprise the reader with every change of the screen. The downside of that is that when you take that and put it on the printed page, you don't have the beautiful page layout that you would get from being able to organize all the images so that they're facing front. They're similar art forms, but distinctively different. They borrow a lot from one another.
Have you guys run into any limitations with your platform, your individual platforms? Felix?
Limitations.
I mean, anything that you couldn't accomplish? I mean, it sounds like Doug was talking about he found new ways, and every time he tries it out, there's a new thing he can do. I mean,
I don't think so. We dream up something, an idea. I send requirements to my programmers, and in 2 days it's there. Stuff that I didn't know that's possible.
right.
Because it's amazing. It's truly. I didn't show anything. Do you mind if
Yeah,
I?
no, please.
you
I think
know,
everyone wants to see.
Yeah.
Just lean in a little bit.
So this is us, and all of the great books. But what I was talking about is, and this is.
Michael, why don't you hold the microphone?
Yeah.
so you can read
Thank you
both
so
ends.
much.
This is what a coalition does. It holds each other's microphones.
So this is Mark's book, and this is how the panel, the editing works. So let's find. This is how it works. It looks, and this is what I can do, or any of you can do. You just draw panels with your finger. Add special effects like shake in this case, and explosion, let's say, is a sound.
So the reader can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just
Yeah.
the platform
No,
runners.
you
Oh,
can
the
do
reader
that
can
because,
So you can record your own commentary on how bad my comic is if you want to. And share with all your friends.
Or you can record
You're
your
out of the,
own.
you're out of the coalition. You're out.
So you can record yourself. You can record your voice, or a creator
Yeah.
can create a little a commentary, like a movie commentary, and also you can set up seconds to run, so it animates. It's kind of cool. So and stuff like that. You can do like blur, black and white, sound effects, breathing. It's endless, and we can. That's what I meant by crowdsourcing stuff
Yeah.
like that. You become kind of co-creator.
Right. I mean, on the face of it, it's not that. I mean, on the face of it, it seems like it flies in what I said about a minute ago about how you don't want to add that stuff because it takes control away from the readers. But the way you're talking about it augmenting what's already. You could also just read the comic.
Yeah,
But that's more like director's commentary stuff. That's more like what the special features you'd find on a Blu-ray. That's just
Yeah.
terrific. Yeah.
So there's no limits really.
Yeah.
It's the limit is here in your head. So I spoke with Mark about some experience. We are coming out with shareable reading. When I flip the page, and whoever joined in my reading, the page will flip too on your device.
Yeah.
So we can all hear a creator reads and can experience that. So this sharing kind of thing, everything, there's no limits here.
The limitations on your end?
Yeah, well, in terms of limitations, like vertically, we have no limitations. It's unlimited. It's an infinite canvas.
Right.
The only problem is you can't scroll horizontally. But we have scroll on here, so we got those bases
Just
covered.
get the two of them
Yeah.
together. Yeah. And with us, the only one that I can think of repeatedly is until they start making iPads that are 1.5 feet wide. You're still limited to the real estate here. It looks amazing, but as I've always said, with humility, look, Jack Kirby would not do his best work on the iPad.
Right.
Will Eisner would not do his best work in digital comics because you're not being able to do the 2-page spread. You're not being able to do the big bombastic moments. That's part of the trade-off of the technology so far.
Doug?
Yeah, speaking as a creator, I do feel Scroll-On has lots of limitations, as does prose, as does filmmaking,
Yeah.
as does animation.
Yeah.
Everything is every art form has inherent limitations, and as an artist, what you need to do is figure out how to maximize the possibilities of that art form and minimize the liabilities.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would never say this is better than a printed book, or any more than I would say that dance is a better art form than sculpture. They're apples and oranges.
Yeah.
And I love comic books. I love printed books. Anybody who's seen my studio would know that.
Right.
But I think that if you're reading a printed book, it should be hinged on a spine and something you can hold in your hand.
Yeah.
So how do we connect with the comic book store owner? How do we keep this guy in business and a place to go and marry that with the digital format, or is there a way?
No,
We'll go start with Doug.
Yeah, I actually think that we're going to, one thing we may be finding with digital is going to be a lot easier to make money off of physical objects that we sell that are the byproduct of our content.
Yeah.
I think the best thing about digital is it allows you to get your content in front of a lot of people. But I believe that ultimately we're going to have to find, I just think it's a lot easier to sell something that's physical than something that's digital.
Yeah.
So digital is really great at getting your content out, and I suspect there's going to be a lot more, I would hope at least, prints and books and figurines and things that will be the byproduct of the stories that we create and scroll on. That will be physical things that can be sold in brick and mortar stores.
yeah, I would say. I mean, I have this in common with Gaston. I also am a comic store owner. I own a store in Muncie, Indiana, and I wholly own the store called All Yeah Comics, Muncie, with my partner Christina Blanche. And we run up against this all the time, which is, okay, we're doing digital comics. How does this help us as a print comics outlet?
Mm-hmm.
Are we trying to put ourselves out of business? This would be bad. No, the reality is digital comics is the newsstand. Digital comics is a way of being able to really broadcast all this content out to every nook and cranny. And then the comic stores then get to become sort of the gatekeepers, the curators, if you will, the guys, who then will read things on Thrillbent and then come into our store and go, well, what do you got? Well, what did you read on Thrillbent that you liked? Did you like this? Did you like The Damnation of Charlie Wormwood? Then you might like this. Then you might like, did you read Insufferable? Then you might like Irredeemable. And sort of steer them that way. And I think that, again, that seems to be the most obvious integration there.
Can I say one other thing too, is about the digital allows you to test something to decide what is worth actually going through the expense of doing the physical production of
Yes.
something too, which is a great advantage.
Which is, and a huge expense.
Yeah, for sure. One thing on the Tapastic app is that we have a thing called the Daily Comic Snack, and it's a push notification that you get like every day at 12, and it's curated by the staff, and it gets people in the habit of reading comics every single day. And originally we weren't targeting comic readers, and we're just targeting everybody. And so the more times we found that a user will read through a comic snack, the more times they'll open the app, and the more times they'll explore more comics in the site. And I think that inherent curiosity built upon this sort of daily snack is actually going to drive people to the comic book store and to explore new content.
Yeah.
Felix, you got anything to say on that?
Well, the store has something that digital cannot provide. This human connection. Store like this one is not just a store. You organize tables here where a reader can meet the creator, and that's amazing. That makes me understand that creators are just people like me, and encourage me to create. So this partnership is invaluable. It must be a partnership between digital and a store, because it's a culture. It's a
Gaston, can we throw that question to you as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, somebody give that man a microphone.
All right. So I believe now, learning from them and their passion, that it can only help brick and mortar stores to incorporate even an existing screen where they're playing video games or loops of like movie trailers, some of the content that's available, and with like a link back or I don't know, QR code. Sales of digital comics that were free online have been massive for us in book form. Harka Vagrant, #1 selling book for Drawn and Quarterly, a publisher that's been around for 20 years that has, Seth and so many other top creators. Their success is coming from finding books that fit their criteria as a publisher, and it's just been massive. If what the content that's coming out from these gentlemen here can be elevated to the point where there's a need for a printed item, it's just gonna give, I don't know, some sort of an event where they could then share this published book and show that it's a relevant art form and more people can create.
Yeah.
It's good for us. I mean, we're going to start teaching how to do web comics, how to do digital comics, how to color comics in our Meltdown University. Not a plug, it's just a fact. Seeing that this is the new frontier. Create without the loss of having dead stock inventory if you publish and nobody cares.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because another beauty of this is you do get to find out what somebody's going to what somebody wants to read before you
Yeah.
actually buy it, stock it on your shelves.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the same way
Trackable
we.
numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
Proof of product.
Proof of product, exactly.
I'm myself a student of Meltdown University, so
Oh, hey.
Jim, yeah, so that's how I became Comics Fix. Now I came up with the idea. So,
Nice to meet you.
that's, yeah, so Jim is not here. Jim Higgins is a fantastic teacher, and he's here teaching people to love comics, to create comics. And he's in the store. This is what's amazing about this store. It's a university, is town meeting kind of place. So if every store will rise to the occasion, be that innovative, that's gonna be amazing to see.
So as a creator, how do you create a digital comic? How do we create, and I don't know. What's the first steps I would take to talk to you guys to get my stuff online? How does it work? I don't even know.
Talk about more about how creators come to you with your open platform and stuff.
We have Trisha Williams right here, who's a creator on our site. She does Gamer Girl pinups. Our site's an open platform. Like, just create an account. You can upload images, and we'll stack them vertically. We also have a series on the site called the Comic Guide, or the Creator's Guide to Tapastic, where we teach creators how to make comics, how to think about it in a digital manner. Like, you have to really consider font sizes a lot more digitally, because what if someone's reading on the phone? Is it going to be legible? Or, panel layouts, taking into account like gutter spacing on a digital format, or, whatnot. So in terms of creators, it's really been word of mouth for us. Like, creators that have adopted our platform have spread the word, and word has spread really fast. We have 4,000 creators, so that sort of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And I think part of the allure is that it's an open platform, and what you get out of it is what you put in. Like, you don't really need to adopt the full vertical format. You could upload pages if you really wanted to. And so because of the flexibility, I think there's no barrier to entry. And I think that's one of the beauties of digital comics, where there are no rules, pretty much.
I got to say, one of the most exciting things about comics in the last 10 years for me has been that I've been doing them for 30 years. And for the first 25 years, the answer to the question, how do I break into comics, was, well, you got to go to Marvel, you got to go to DC, you got to self-publish your stuff, you got to go to convention, blah, 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 blah. In the last 5 or 6 years, the answer has become, go do an online comic. There's nothing keeping you from doing a comic. You upload a JPEG to your, WordPress has a very basic plugin. There's anything, you can put anything on a web page, and that becomes a digital comic. It's a web comic. Do your own, and if it's good and people respond to it, they'll find, you'll find your audience. The great thing about digital comics that I found is that there's, and again, I think the fact that we've got a coalition is proof of this, that we're not trying to compete with each other. This is not Disney versus Warner Brothers. This is, look, we're all in this together. And if I see something I like, I'll share it through my social media, and you'll blast it out through your social media, and you'll share it. And I see something on your site that I like, I'll tell everybody about it. And that's been very true of the web comics community that I have dealt with in the last 4 or 5 years, and I love that.
Do you think it could stay that way?
Until money comes in.
Yeah, there will be bloodthirsty
Yeah.
and stabbing each other in the back.
Yeah. Right now we have the advantage of the fact that no one's really making any money at it. So far, so good. See, that's another reason why Gaston doesn't have to worry, because, it's just, you're making money on comics. We're not really doing that yet. So we're not going to undercut you yet.
Doug, anything on your end?
The original question was that
About the creators, how to get involved with you, how to work on your site, what needs to be done?
if anybody's interested in creating scroll-ons, just contact me. I make the tools free for anybody who wants to do it. Right now, I really just want more content, and I want to see what other people who aren't me, who aren't Mark, who aren't one or two other people, will do with it.
Yeah.
Because every time I do a new story, I discover something, and I just feel like it's wide open. Also, because if Scroll-On has a chance to make money, it's not going to make money, I don't think, from sale of content, for me personally. But again, for Mark it would, but not for me. Yeah, it's a very open system for us. It's just, you have to know that what you can't do easily with Scroll-On is you can't easily adapt it to a book or take an existing book and adapt it to Scroll-On.
One of the questions we just got on Twitter was, what are the barriers of entry now? And I think we pretty much addressed that. There's
Pretty
really
much
not
addressed
many,
If you
not
can
many
if
barriers.
you can set up a website, there is no barrier.
Indeed. Well, I think also what Tapastic has done is they've removed that barrier.
Yeah.
But,
Right, yeah.
but yeah, it is remarkably easy if you want to just use a template site. If you're disciplined enough to draw the content, you can publish it. It's so easy to do it. It's harder to get views. The first webcomic I did was about 3 years ago. It was a lot easier just to get a following than now you have to fight for
Yeah.
more. In fact, when I started doing digital comics, I'd come back from directing a movie, and I usually would write screenplays in between directing jobs. And honestly, I hate the screenplay format. I don't know if anybody who's a screenwriter is in the audience. I never liked it, but I'd written a lot of them. And I was just really tired of it. So I decided I'd draw a comic book based on one of my favorite stories. And maybe that was a mistake because there hasn't been any turning back. But I drew this as a traditional comic book, and when it was half done, I started sending it out to publishers. I sent it to 4 publishers, and 2 of them wanted to publish it. And they sent me sample letters which said basically 3 things. Don't expect to make a dime off this. Be prepared to do the work yourself. We want 20% of the ancillary market. So I kind of did it just for the fun of it. So I wasn't expecting to make money, and I was prepared to promote it. But why was I giving up 20% of the ancillary for what? For a printing fee?
Yeah.
So I actually looked at putting that comic online, and then I just started to think, well, how do I best do this? And I ended up breaking it down panel by panel and just showing them kind of like a storyboard. And then after that, when I went to do my next story, I thought, is there a better way to do it? But it was pretty easy to create a website at that time. Easier, I made it more complicated than it needed to be because I wanted to always reinvent everything. But like now, if a creator has a comic, wants to draw it, like Tapastic makes it very very easy. And Comics Fix makes it easy.
Easy, yeah.
Yeah, for us it's just we practically take 24 hours to upload your book once uploaded. We don't drag it too much.
Now again, we don't want to. I'm not trying to oversell this, but be aware. The other barrier is that you still need to eat and pay rent. And again, I'm not poor mouthing up here. We're all excited. We're all doing fine, and we're all very excited about the audience we have. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, it ain't a money tree yet. And hopefully someday it will be. Although that I'm less worried about that, as I'm just worried about making sure that the creators get paid for what they do, rather than they make the giant money down the road. It is at this point because there's so much out there, and there's so there's so many different ways of approaching social media, and it's so easy to get lost in the shuffle that it is hard to create a sustainable audience for your webcomic that will pay your rent.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But what I would also like to add that's not something that is unique to doing
That's
comics.
true. Then yeah.
I think anybody who's written a novel or
Any
written screenplays
creative work, it's
or it's very difficult to actually make money, and most of the people that do that do it for the love of it.
Yeah.
Until they get tired or frustrated.
Yeah.
But most times it's just very difficult to actually make a living. There's a very small percentage of people that can make a living, and some of them can make a very good living.
Yeah.
The rest of us do it because we have
Right.
something we want to say.
And we're making more money every month, and we're making a little bit
Yeah.
more every month, and
The-
we're getting there.
The
Yeah.
good thing about if you put something online is consistency is your friend, and if you're
Yes.
willing to be consistent, you can each month build up your following, and it'll grow and get larger
Yep.
as long as you do it, or unless you just start doing things really offensive or bad or
Right.
insulting or stupid.
So here's another question from Twitter. How will digital comics be monetized in the future?
And if
With
any of
space
us,
credits. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Whoever wants to field that one.
I think that's the question that everybody's asking, and that's the question we're all exploring now, how to do it.
Well, there's a couple of models we haven't talked about. One of them, because we don't use them necessarily, you come close with the Patreon-esque. But for those who don't understand Patreon, that's the model by which you are basically, a creator is asking you for X number of dollars a month. It's a small buy-in, like $5, $10, whatever. And for that, they produce their comics. The more contribution they get, the more they're able to produce. The more you're able to, if they get a certain number of supporters, patrons, then they're able to do special things for them, special prints, special giveaways, or whatever. And that's something, again, you guys have.
Yeah, we have a Tapastic support program which runs very similar to that. I think in general that mentality is like crowdsourcing, getting small donations from your fans in order to create sort of a sustainable ecosystem where you can create month to month and grow that fan base.
Yeah.
Other revenue streams are like ad revenue is like tried and true for webcomics, selling physical products from the digital comic is also another venue, but also there is potential for like transmedia opportunities. If your comic is really popular, it could be turned into a TV show, movie. We see this sort of model working really well in Korea, where they have a webcomic industry or webtoon industry where a lot of the most popular webtoons get turned into movies or TV shows, and we need to create that culture in the United States where comic reading is a daily part of everyone's life, and where we have sort of more say in terms of pop culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
The comic book business is kind of like the video game business and the film business. It's very hit-driven. So
Yeah,
we've
exactly.
talked about this. So at some point, somebody's going to do a digital comic, a web comic that is just going to be huge.
They're going to do the Walking Dead of the digital comics. They're going to do the saga of the Walking Dead. We had a question from the audience, actually.
I just had I'm curious about like the investment of, I know that everybody, you're talking about most of the people are doing it all on their own work, but I mean, if you're putting together a comic book and like you're the writer, you need an artist, I mean, on average, how much money are people investing in putting a book on your sites?
That's a fair question. If I may take that one, because again, I think it's most pertinent to us, because we actually have a model by which we have two different sorts of things we do on Thrillbent. Like I said, we've got 20 or 30 different series. Some of them are completely creator owned and completely driven, and therefore it's just work they've produced and they're sharing with us on our site, and then we split revenue. But there's also a model by which, with some of it, where we will invest a little bit of creative money toward that content, and then the revenue split's a little bit different. It's shamefully low, but it can be done if we can. On average, the way the Thrillbent deal works, for instance, to give you a good barometer, on the average, the way the deal works is it's creator-owned. The creators get to keep all the rights. All we ask for is a 50-50 split of revenue until such time as you earn back what we've put in. And then at which point, then we just get a small revenue after that. So, but we don't pay the writer. Because there's just no budget in it, but we can pay the artist, we pay the colorist, we pay the letterer. And what we found is that if we can do a chapter of a Thrillbent book, anywhere from like 8 to 10, 12 screens, for about $1,000 a chapter, it's a little more than we'd like to spend. It's also cheap for comic book labor. I mean, that's not a lot of money given, what we're asking of these people. But they also understand that, but they own it. At the end of the day, it's theirs. If that gives you any barometer whatsoever, if you're a writer looking to get a digital comic done, if you can free up $100 for art, if you can free up $20 for lettering per page, if you can, $100 per page if you can free up $30 or $40 per page for coloring, those are bargain basement rates. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but everybody also knows they're in on it with you. They're sharing in the revenue, and therefore, this is an investment in their future. Does that give you any sort of barometer? Those are hard numbers, which people don't give out very often. So, and that's just my example. Other people's mileage may vary. There may be more money to be put in. There may be less. I don't know. So,
Anyone else got an answer for
I
that
mean, I feel like at least for Tapastic, like 2-person teams are less common.
yeah.
On Tapastic, it's mainly like one creator who
creator,
takes care of all the writing, coloring, art duties.
Yeah.
But in return, like their output isn't as frequent.
Right. Whereas
and-
this allows us to do stuff on a weekly basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there are trade-offs.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience while we're focused on that?
While we're throwing out to you guys.
Because there's some other good questions on
On
Twitter
the-
right
on
now.
the Twitter, yes. How do we got?
One talks about being overwhelmed by the amount of comics that you might find in the digital menu.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So, one, what are your suggestions on how to narrow it down to what you should be looking at, and then maybe offer a few of the titles that you guys would recommend in your app or in your platform?
In your specific platforms, yeah. What what?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of comic books, and it's really overwhelming, the number and the variety, and especially since it's indie kind of oriented, and people not familiar neither with names. I'm not talking about.
You're not talking about Superman and Batman and Spider-Man. You're talking
Yeah.
about things that are
We
in
do
different,
have- we
right,
have-
but not some. But you have broader genres.
Yeah,
than just
so-
superhero stuff, right?
So we kind of thinking about kind of introducing a personal curation when we have our own team. Also, we want to outreach to people like Mark, people who are known that can explore our library, recommend stuff to their kind of audience. So this is what I read. If you follow me, read this. I love it. So I think this personal touch, the recommendation, kind of not a robotic recommendation, will work for this. 'Cause, we all have limited time, want to spend it well. I will come up with something in terms of recommendation. I'll tweet it to you guys.
There you go.
So in terms of
this is particularly applicable to you because you've got.
Yeah, but we're 6,000 series, so it's kind of hard to curate.
I'm not sure where when I dive in, sometimes I'm not quite sure where to start with.
Yeah. So like back to the daily comic snack. Right now it's totally curated by me. But eventually the next evolution of this daily comic snack is going to be dictated by how you interact with the app. So let's say that you're not interested in these sort of gag-a-day comics, you're more interested in science fiction. If you're subscribed to a bunch of science fiction comics on the site, or if you like that kind of content, if you're interacting with the app that way, we'll start replacing these comics with more stuff that you're interested in. And we feel that that's a more scalable way to recommend comics. Beyond that, we have something called collections, where we collect comics together that have, like if one user is subscribed to like 5 comics, and a lot of users are taking that same sort of pattern, then we collect them together and we recommend it to people. And yeah, it's really difficult to curate over 6,000 titles.
Yeah.
And surfacing it on a rapid basis.
So can you give us 3 right now that we should be checking out?
3 right now that you should be checking out.
We
You
can
should-
come back to you.
Yeah, I'll tweet it out to you later.
All right. So any questions? Hashtag off the page.
Yeah.
So okay.
You've given me a really good idea. One of the things that we've talked about for Thrillbent but have never implemented for whatever reason, because Thrillbent is still just 3 people in a garage, and we all have full-time jobs, is this idea of new to Thrillbent. You need that splash. We should have a new to Thrillbent splash page that says, what do you like? Do you like Breaking Bad? If you like Breaking Bad, you're going to love The Damnation of Charlie Wormwood by Christina Blanche. Do you like Game of Thrones? Then you're really going to like Empire by Mark Waid and Barry Kitson or whatever. And those would be my two recommendations, by the way. But but beyond that, that is a way of. That's part of what we're going to try to work on as a coalition is answer that very question. How do you start narrowcasting some of this stuff so that when somebody says, hey, I want to go find a digital comic somewhere, they're not. That would be like going into a record store and saying, I want to hear a song.
Right.
Where do you even start? Yeah.
Doug?
Actually, I would like to know the answer to that question myself, because
Well, tell us what you recommend on your on the app, and then we'll start there.
Well, I'll start with reading The Heart of the Hollow World, because that's what I'm currently doing, and it's actually a story I've been wanting to do since I was 15 years old, and so it's about time I got around to it. Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
There you go.
But sometimes I try to figure out what I want to read, if I want to read see what other people are doing in digital comics, and it is difficult. And I usually will ask friends who spend more time reading comics than I do.
All right. Any other comments on that one? Anyone got their top recommendations?
I just found one of my favorite comics, Twisted Dark, and you guys have a copy of that. It's from UK. Neil Gibson is the writer, and we have 4 volumes of his writing.
What's it called again? Twisted Dark?
Twisted Dark.
And that's by who?
It's Neil Gibson.
Neil Gibson, okay.
Yeah, it's just fantastic writing. It's very dark, but I love it. And we have just up to date, whatever they publish, they send this to us, and it's all kind of black and white. It's,
Yeah, you know what?
different artists. And it's just beautiful, and it's there for you to read. And
And pursuant what you're asking about, where do what do we recommend and so forth? Part of the beauty of digital comics too, is that printed comics. 5 years ago, printed comics were 90% superhero comics, probably. Now, it's less than that, but it's still the predominant genre. Nothing wrong with that. I've made a lot of money writing superhero comics. I love my superhero comics, but it's like I wouldn't expect to go into a bookstore and every book is a Western novel. There should be a broadening of the genres, and that's part of the reason that I broke into digital. It's part of the reason that some of these other guys broke into digital too. Is that you can find an audience for that stuff. Almost none of the material on Thrillbent is superhero material. It's science fiction. It's horror. It's romance. It's prison drama. Whatever. It's of your stuff. It's comedy. It's drama. There's nothing wrong with superhero comics, but the beauty of digital comics is that you can throw open the doors to all the genres, and that way you get to attract a much wider audience and a much more diverse audience. And we can do we can be a lot more diverse with our creators. We can be a lot more diverse with our material. So I think that's great.
Cool. Speaking of creators, a question from Englishman SDCC. How creative have you found writers/artists in using the digital space? Have you found some fixed in old narrative techniques?
Yes.
Yes.
But some that are very remarkably innovative and surprising as well. Yeah.
So what are some of the innovations, or what are some of the things that you're seeing where they're pushing the boundaries?
There's a guy named Jeremy Rock who I started doing. The very first thing we threw on Thrillbent was a little short story I did called Luther, about a kid in a post-apocalyptic world whose job it was to do roadkill for, the dead zombies and stuff. A very poignant little tear-jerking story. But Jeremy he got it right off the bat. And Jeremy had been in comics for 10, 12 years. So he'd had time to calcify into what comics are, but instead he understood. It's about being able to do interesting things with a composition, being able to do the things, like you said, where you'll turn the page and suddenly you'll be surprised by something, or suddenly a new art element will show up and that puts everything into a different context. There are a lot of guys who are, my age or older, who are, that's cute. You got your digital comics. I understand it's the future, but I like my pen and ink, and that's fine. But we've been very lucky to be. I'll latch on to anybody who comes to the table with something new, and especially the guys who come to the table with new things that I don't think about. That's part of the joy of, and I think, Doug, you're probably with me on this, that's part of the joy of doing digital comics, is that moment in the creation, and it should, if you're lucky, it happens every time you do an installment, where you think of something you never thought about before. You think of a new way of doing comics that you never thought about before. And that buoys me for an entire day when that happens.
Yeah, I think a lot of the creative process is knowing what to let go of as you move forward. And I think actually that adaptability is becoming more and more important as the world changes so quickly, as the entertainment industry changes so quickly. And I say the same thing to friends of mine that want to be directors or screenwriters. We tend to cling to the things that were glamour positions in the past. Like everybody wants to, if they want to be a director, they want to direct feature films. And anybody who's aspiring to be a director now, I'd say go into webisodes.
Yeah.
Start there. There's a lot of opportunity now. It's just, it's growing in some areas and it's dwindling in other areas. Also, I'm really surprised that how open people are isn't always an age-related thing. I would say that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when people are young and they're creative and they're struggling, they're trying to find what works, and they find something that does work, and then they go, I found it, that's it, I'm going to stick with this.
Yeah.
The truth is that worked at that moment. And you have to keep reinventing yourself on a daily basis, or at least on a yearly basis, and realize the world is different, I'm different, my experiences are different. What do I do now? So the ability to think differently and to try something new, I think it's going to become more and more essential for everybody.
It's hard sometimes, but I mean, I'm as the only one up here who still has a foot in both camps, where I write printed comics during the day and digital comics at night in two different media, and it's finding that I have to sometimes like throw out half of the tools in my toolbox because they don't work in this media. But you know what? I better find another way of doing it, and it just, that's the fun of it. Back to the issue of the question, there will always be the guys who don't want to embrace that, and I'm a tease if I call them dinosaurs. That's baloney. That's like saying you're a jazz musician, you don't want to do rock. That doesn't make you a bad jazz musician. If that's not what you want to do, that's cool. But yeah, there have been a few guys who are my peers who I've talked to, and they're like, oh, it's interesting, but by and large, a lot of them get a little spark in their eye and go, well, this is interesting because I've been doing it my way for 30 years.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, on our site, there's a creator called Min who does a comic called Fail by Error. And
Fail buyer?
Yeah, Fail by Error.
Okay.
And she did something that I feel like you can only do in digital comics, where she did a choose your own adventure comic where the audience has to weigh in, but she updates it every 4 hours.
That's great. Wow.
And she did this for for a couple days, and I thought that that was really interesting and really something unique to the platform of digital comics, where you can't really do that in a physical medium.
Right.
Yeah, so it's sort of like real time.
So she's actually doing the story based on the input she's getting?
Yeah, and she has a live stream where she draws it and she's like showing everyone how she's doing it.
That's
and
great.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
That's great. Felix?
Well, our platform is a little more traditional than all of you guys, because we work with kind of adapt what is being produced for print, and so we don't deal with a lot of kind of groundbreaking stuff from the creative point. So a lot of people create to print. And I guess you guys are leading the way to change stuff. But I believe that digital comics will look much more different. It's going to be looking different in like 5 years. So there's going to be a lot of consideration to platforms, kind of cross-platform. There's going to be a lot of tools. There's going to be a lot of way to express yourself. There's going to be, what I do next after I creating those, characters. Can I make a moving animation? Can I print a book? There's going to be so much option for you. So the print will be an option, and also the animation part.
Let me throw out to the audience for a second. I'll get to you in a second. Let me just throw out to the audience. Those of you who have read, and most like 99.9% of you had read digital comics when you threw your hands a little while ago. Is there anybody who can articulate for me what it is about a digital comic that they really enjoy that is different than a print comic? Is it the availability? Is it the fact that you don't have to put on pants and go to a store to get it? Is it that, I mean, yes.
Well, I'm out of room in my house. I mean, honestly.
Yes.
I mean, my wife said, you can't bring any more comics in.
Yeah.
And so I started buying them digitally. And I enjoy it. Now, I mean, there's still a handful of print comics that I do buy.
Yeah.
Daredevil was one of them.
Good answer. Thank you.
But, you know,
He gets the free digital download though now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just availability and portability, storability.
Yeah, exactly.
Is huge. But then just from a creative standpoint,
Yeah.
because I'm a dabble
Yeah.
in the comics, is that the digital stuff, especially the thrill band, is like the creative opportunities that digital affords are very different than what you can do in print.
Yeah.
And like you said, and it's really it's exciting to kind of dive into that and kind of figure out what you can do.
Yeah. You, sir.
Oh, I guess I was, my question was kind of weird because I was going to ask about technology. As technology is, you know, it seems like it's, for me, every day it's changing so dramatically.
Sure.
Each program, you know, Photoshop updates
Every
few
8
weeks,
minutes,
so
I know,
we
yeah.
learn the whole program.
Yeah.
So how do you approach dealing with the fact that the technology that you're working with today is out of date the day you
The
put
day
it
it
out?
put it out.
And then you're going to have to somehow, you know, keep up with that as you move forward with new projects or whatever.
Please, go ahead.
When I started Scroll On, I had, my original thought was I budgeted a certain amount to create the app and to create the online version of the program, thinking that when I was done with that and I had the app working the way I wanted, I would then take that money that I'd allocated for programmers and spend it on hiring other creators just to help beef up the library. What, in my innocence, I did not understand is that having an app is like having a child. You are
Nurture.
never done with them.
Yeah.
And you never get rid of it until it just dies on you. You always have to update it. You always have to, as soon as you finish it, you go, oh, I know what I should have done. It is a real challenge, and it's a bigger expense than I suspect any of us when we started anticipated, because operating systems change so much. So just to keep up with the changes that Apple or Android make or require, especially Apple, it's a money pit.
Yeah, I wish I had a smarter answer, but the reality is, you ever see the movie Stand By Me? You know that famous moment when they're on the train trestle, they're about halfway down the train, and all of a sudden they hear the train behind them, and they're just running for the end of the bridge. That's every day of my life. Because there's always behind me, I hear the whistle of a new screen ratio, or a new pixel count, or something else, and we are trying to scramble as hard as we can, and at the same time create content, because it's not just about making it look good; it's about also creating it. So, please.
There's a second part to that. Is
Yeah.
Creating images when you're doing like a traditional comic.
Mhm.
There are lots of small panels that you can put in that
Right.
don't matter if they're small when they're printing because they're going to look small.
Right.
And no one's going to see them like this.
Right.
See all that. Now suddenly digital, those small panels can suddenly be blown up to the size of a bus or
Yeah.
The biggest Apple screen, and all the crummy little extra lines that you drew
Yep.
in there are suddenly there.
Yep.
And so how much extra work do you think the artists are going through to try and maintain the zoom in ability to fight that?
Peter Krause in particular and I had a conversation about this just the other day, because he was forced to look back at the first few chapters of Insufferable as we were compositing it for print, and he was just, and I don't see anything wrong. I think it's beautiful work, but he was just cringing because it's 2 years old, and he just looking at it like all the things I've learned about what looks good on a screen and drawing for the screen. The one place where I think it helps make a difference for our artists is that so many of them are starting to learn to work in Manga Studio, or just basically work on a Cintiq. And more of our guys are not even working on pen to paper anymore, but they're drawing directly on the screen. And therefore, it's that there's a step in translation that you don't have to make anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On to a new topic.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking about creators getting involved. Anyone can make a comic. Anyone can get on and do a digital comic. It's easy access now. I think a lot of people not only want to just make a comic, but they want to get that IP
Yeah.
to a higher level, to a movie, to a TV, to a whatever
Yeah,
it
me
may
too,
be.
dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, are there any successes? Can you report any successes that are solely digital, IP that has?
I can from Thrillbent. We have a comic called Everstar, which is done by Becky Tinker, and her artist and her did this lovely little story about a young girl who lives in a seaside town and becomes the captain of a pirate spaceship. It's an amazing little story, and it's squarely YA stuff, skewing toward a younger audience. But we've already but it's already I can't say who, but there's pilot money being put behind it right now to do it as a I don't know if it's a live action or animated, but honestly, there's somebody bit, which is awesome.
What's the title again?
Everstar.
And the creator?
Becky Tinker, you would ask me, Becky Tinker
Sorry.
and the artist who I will apologize to for the rest of my
Well,
life.
we can look at Everstar.
Yes, Everstar. I'm sorry, artist of Everstar, who I'm blanking on. I apologize.
Anyone else? Michael, anything out of your camp?
On the flip side, we've been contacted by a lot of gaming studios in order to translate their games into comics, which is sort of like the flip side of this process, which is really cool. In terms of sort of like the upstream, turning our comics into TV shows or movies, Tapastic doesn't own any of the IP. If you're a creator, you own all of it. So we're sort of hands off.
So how does it work then in the alternative when the game studio comes to you? How do you hire the creators?
Yeah.
Do you figure that out?
Yeah, so I'm the director of content, so I talk to almost every creator on the site. I try to. And when the gaming company comes to us and says, like, this is the project, do you have any creators in mind? I could create a short list of creators that I know are going to be a really good fit for it. Yeah.
What are they looking for? Why do they want the comic? Have they expressed to you why they want the comic?
Well, for this company in particular, this company's called Come To Us, and their game is Summoner's War, and they are familiar with the webcomic scene and sort of what webcomics can do, and they think it's a better synergy for them in terms of, because it's a video game and we have a lot of demographic overlap, and so it was a perfect fit.
Cool.
Let me just jump in real quick and mention that Joey Brown will be receiving a lovely bottle of scotch for my flub. She's amazing.
Okay. Another combined two questions from Twitter here. They ask mainly about how do you get new readers and new followers, and then what are your plans for marketing the platforms and the comics?
That's kind of what we've been at. That's kind of why we got together, because we're asking ourselves the same questions. I'm not even trying to make light of that. Like, that's, if you know.
So if we have a Twitter suggestion,
Yeah,
you will
hit it,
take
Please,
that.
Yeah.
if everybody on Twitter.
Anybody
Hashtag off the page.
Tweet us, because other than blasting it out through social media, using our own contacts, telling our friends, getting people to retweet the stuff or like it on Facebook or remind people, Instagram, the stuff. I don't know. That's
had
the hard part.
Some success advertising with
Yes.
through Project Wonderful.
Yeah.
What's
and
that?
What is this?
Project Wonderful?
No.
Do you not know
Yeah.
about Project
No.
Wonderful?
No.
Really?
I don't.
Well, it's a marketing.
It's
it's
an
ads.
Yeah, but it's mostly
network.
for web comics. It kind of interacts with other web comics, and yeah, it's a very useful and cost-effective way of
Okay,
advertising.
you're in the coalition now. All right, good.
Thank you.
Right?
So wait, so Project Wonderful, it's a website? I mean, what is it?
It's an advertising platform.
Okay.
Basically, you can set up ads that you could have be on other webcomics sites, or you can be an advertiser if you have a webcomic, and you can invite people to put ads on your site.
Okay.
And it's a bidding system. Basically, you can bid based on how many other people want to put their ad on the site, how many views you get. Yeah, it's actually really useful. And you can do campaigns on them where you just kind of blast your ads out to, like I just do automated because I'm too lazy to actually do them one by one.
I mean, the owner of Project Wonderful is the creator of Dinosaur Comics, like one of
Oh, really?
the most well-renowned web comics.
I know
Kinda
dinosaur
like
comics.
that.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize
I
the
know-
connection.
I know
Okay,
that, yeah.
wow.
Okay, well,
There you go.
Felix, what are you guys doing?
Well, we basically right now trying different things. Facebook advertising. It's just costly marketing. That's it. You know,
I'm not kidding when I say anybody who has a suggestion, and I'm not begging for it. I'm saying I'm making the point that there is no wall here. See, this is as transparent as it gets. We are telling you everything we know about digital comics, and we're willing to share whatever we know. And all we ask in return is if you got suggestions, throw them. I don't mean right this second. Like, I'm not putting you on the spot. You won't be graded, but in the weeks and months to come, we're easy to find on the web. We all have our different apps. We also have the Digital Comic Coalition site. If you want to see digital comics thrive, if you like digital comics, you come up with an idea in the middle of the night for marketing, for promoting, hit us up.
I should also just mention, for promotional purposes, that we all will be at Comic-Con this year.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true.
We're going to
Yes.
have a Digital Comics Coalition booth.
Yes.
And I think actually, Mark, do you know what the number is of?
1223.
1223.
1223. That's okay.
Yes, that is our booth number.
Excellent.
So come visit us.
Please.
So what's
And
that?
bring your suggestions for.
What's that going to look like? What is that booth going to look like? How will, I mean, other than people sitting there, I mean, is it going to be a way to interact with the platforms? I mean, what's it
Yeah,
going to,
we'll
what's the
actually,
experience?
we'll
gonna-
actually have touchscreens there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so everyone who comes to Digital Coalition booth at Comic-Con will, get to manipulate and see what's going on in each of your guys' platforms?
Yeah.
We've done a scroll-on booth there for the last 4 years now. And we just set up large touchscreen monitors and let people come by and interact with it.
Well, Gaston, one of the questions from Twitter, and maybe you can, you touched on it a little bit, but how do you have any idea about how maybe a comic book store could advertise or display or somehow get the core audience connected with the digital platforms?
Just listening and learning and just being part of this experience, I picked up a need of the curator, the voice, the some sort of standard bearer of quality and what can be better down the line. And
You mean like the Meltdown stamp?
yeah, some sort of like approved by or
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
a mark of excellence, some sort of it could come from music, it could come from comics, from within, from film, just some external voice that can then see this new platforms, experience it, and then spit back through their social media how this could all work. I mean, I'm been sitting next to him. He's taking classes from us. I want to work with his company. I mean, if there's a way that I could somehow Meltdown, buy into his company or somehow work with him, massive potential. Just what we have been able to accomplish in brick and mortar, the TV shows, everything else that we're up to, this is just another way to outreach that I think could be massive. And I'm just grateful that I'm part of this foundation, just being able to listen and have Mark reach out. I mean,
So
much learning.
you're on the coalition now, whether you want to know it, whether you do it or not. You're our first draftee member.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, all of these. There's video games companies that I'm working with, and now I know, news to me, that I could work with him.
Absolutely.
You know, taking that content that just lives and the story ends, and then extending it to a base that already is used to seeing it in their consoles and phones and whatnot. And down the line, I mean, everybody here has a valid service that it's going to be massive soon, and I'm not going to be a record store 20 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
Jump on this ship and ride on.
Exactly.
So it's the future now. This is enlightening.
That is the Meltdown stamp of approval. That's excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is the, are there other members in the coalition? Is this something, is it just you core four, or what's the future
Core
look like
five
there?
right now.
Madefire.
Madefire isn't with
Sorry.
us
That's all right.
today.
Sorry, Madefire.
But it's we are really in our infancy now, and so we've been approached by a number
Well,
of
Panel
people.
Syndicate, Brian Vaughn and Marcos Martin also have expressed an interest in being in this. What we talked about at lunch before we got over here, El Compadre, excellent, is, it is, look, it's still embryonic. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the parameters of this coalition are. we know the mission statement, which is to get the word out there. I think but we're open to, if people, especially content creators, who are in that same boat where they're looking to try to find a way to connect with their audience. I think that those are the people that we're most interested in talking to and sharing ideas with and sharing that energy with. So, again, our contact information is right there on the Digital Coalition. What is our website again?
Digital Coalition Digital Comics
Yeah,
Coalition.org.
coalition.org, yeah.
Let's get this right here, okay?
DigitalComicsCoalition.org, yes.
Got an org, huh?
Yeah, yes.
So are you going to plan on doing other meetings like this, other, broadcasts, live casts? Is this something that you guys...
Conventions.
Conventions?
Yeah.
So we'll do those. What else? Anything else in the works besides that?
The convention is a big part. We have plans to cancel the San Diego one and make it a digital one.
Make it a digital
Just
one,
kidding.
okay.
But Mark drafted an amazing vision for conventions. If you want to talk about that.
We've been talking, it's maybe a little too early to talk about it right now. We've been talking about drafting up what would be one of the world's first digital-only conventions, and then you'll be hearing more about that in the next few weeks.
Okay. And so we got San Diego. Is there any other conventions that we know we're going to now?
We got to get through San Diego
Let's
first.
get
and
through
then
San
we'll-
Diego first, exactly, yes.
Okay. Anything else? This is about time we're going to wrap it up, I think. But if anyone wants to say a little bit, final words to get people to come to see the site, to try out the digital platform that you guys have to offer, here's your chance. So why don't we start with Doug here?
Well, I would just echo what Mark was saying about wanting to reach out to content creators, because the platforms that we create are only as good as the content itself. And a good story will be a good story in different mediums. The most important thing for all of us is to actually just get more stories, create more stories ourselves, invite other people to join us in this movement.
Yes.
And get their stuff out. I think just generally in the world now, for people that are creating content, it's good to start thinking in broader terms, not about writing a book or writing a comic book or selling a screenplay, but in making the world aware of your stories and your characters and selling the idea. A good story can be marketed and in multiple mediums. But digital comics is an awfully good place to start, because for as much money as we all spend on it, it's still the least expensive way to create a product that is visualized, has characters you can copyright, has a beginning, middle, and end, plot, dialogue, and put it in front of the world.
Exactly. I mean, again, it's like you said, it's really just sweat equity. If you're willing to sit down, if you're an artist, writer, or if you're a writer seeking artist, or vice versa, and you can make that connection, as long as you're willing to put the time and energy into creating a comic, there's so many different places you can go with it. And again, it doesn't mean you're going to make $1 million overnight. It doesn't mean you're going to be a media sensation tomorrow, but there is no barrier to getting that work out there. You don't have to lobby it to a bunch of different publishers and hope someone will take a chance on you. You get to take a chance on yourself, like we have. And that's, God, there's just a more exciting experience for an artist. Top that.
No, that was perfect.
Anything, Michael? Anything you want to leave the crowd with?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things, based on the data on Tapastic, is if you break down the top 30 creators on the site, 19 of them are female, 11 of them are male. So I feel like digital comics in general is a really great platform that showcases that anyone can really do comics and anyone can get popular, and that good storytelling is good storytelling at the end of the day. We don't really see these breakdowns in mainstream comics, and I think that this is exciting. Like this is something that we should be really celebrating, and this is something really awesome.
It's fantastic. Felix?
Well, my experience has shown me that comic books are international. Creators are coming from everywhere. We have amazing stuff from all over the world, and digital makes it all accessible. You can we have polished stuff. We have just amazing. So we are not a small group anymore. We are this huge group of creators that each one of us can be discovered. So any of us can be a great entry point into something new. So just come and start reading. That's it.
Gaston, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm gonna get 850 square inch screens and put them around the store and broadcast all your guys' stuff with your permission.
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
a cocaine heartbeat, you can do that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is ridiculous. The amount of talent, just going through their pages in the past 48 hours, so many different voices, so many varied styles, just ready to be activated. Just why not do it inside a brick and mortar store?
Dude, that is, I'm
Yeah, that'd be
thrilled with
awesome.
that. Then
Yeah.
whatever we can do to facilitate that is great.
That's great.
You guys have been an amazing audience. We have been fire hosing information at you like nobody's business, and I know we've been all over the map, and I hope we basically answered everybody's questions. I hope that most everybody got something out of it if you came. If there's any lingering questions, either now or after we break, we can, catch us out there, and as you can tell, we're all pretty happy to talk. But we'll share whatever we can.
All right, so to be on the live cast, if you got a question now, you want to get on, it's your time.
I got one question. You guys,
Oh, sure, now.
yeah. Well, once he said it was going to be on the live cast.
Well, there you go.
No, I just kind of get the image out of my head about you running on the bridge, always hearing the whistle.
Yes.
So it's I truly understand that. And you guys have given a lot of great information on the digital aspect, the tech aspect, and getting your stuff out there. But when you're constantly hearing that whistle, what's your personal process for all of you guys personally? What do you do to keep the love and to carve out time to create? How do you stay engaged with your love of what you're doing when you're trying to keep up with technology all the time? Is that too big of a question?
No.
It's a great question,
It's a
actually,
great
yeah.
question. I have a good answer, but I
go
want to hear
ahead,
from other. No, I don't want to hear from anybody else.
It is tough to, because it's, after all, it's a business. Each one of us here to grow and add the value to our businesses so we can either support ourselves or to get some kind of investment to support ourselves. So so it's hard. But, when you're distracted by kind of technology and everyday kind of stuff, you go back to why you created that, and it applies to everything we do. So you just go and remember, oh yeah, I remember I was sitting 3 years ago with my little book that I produced in school and tried to sell it in WonderCon, and there was a small table, and I saw people come and buy my book, and I was like, I want more of that. And I did a Kickstarter campaign. I sold more around the world. I went to the post office, and I was sending out to Singapore, to Poland, here, there, Jordan, and I want more of that too. So, I want to create a platform that everybody can get, worldwide eyes on whatever they have created. It's one thing to create, another thing is to be read, and both are beautiful equally. So that's what I think of when the going gets tough.
All right, that bridge that we're talking about, I've been on that bridge for 30 years, and I'm no closer to the end of the bridge than I ever was. But the only way I keep going, and the reason I think it is a great question, is I was thinking about this just last night because I was stuck, as I always am, on some digital story, and the website has a problem, and the colorist needs work, and all this noise is going on, and all I can ever do is just try to focus on, just push through until you make the creative decision that you like. Push on until you write that one line of dialogue that you think is really smart, or you come up with that one image for your comic that kind of surprised you, or just that one moment when you get that sheer joy, even however fleeting, of oh, I just created something I hadn't thought about that didn't exist a few seconds ago. And if you can just hang on to that and after a while trust that you will find it again. And you will find it again, and sometimes you might have to run longer and faster, and sometimes there may be 10 of them in a day, but you'll find them again. And those are the little fireflies that you have to catch in order to keep going through the night. Oh, that's actually pretty good. Did someone write that one down? That's pretty good.
I think you'll be able to watch this on YouTube, Mark, and you can transcribe it. I would just say, with the train chasing me every day, I have this problem where I have so many stories in my head that it's going to explode if I can't get some of them out. So I have a choice. It's like I run fast enough and keep my head from exploding, or I get smashed by the train.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different for me. I used to be a creator. I was a very bad one, but I'm an editor, and there are over 400 episodes uploaded on Tapastic a day, and I read through all of them because I feel like I owe it to all the creators that are taking a chance on the site. And the train that's always behind me is forcing me to make the site better, curate it better, and talk to these artists more one-on-one, make sure that they're getting the service that they deserve and sort of the audience that they deserve. So, yeah.
Great. So it sounds like we got a lot of great information today. I think one of the themes is as long as you have a huge imagination, a great story to tell, regardless of your gender or what country you're from, you have a place in digital comics.
Yeah, for sure.
And so with that, I think we'd like to thank everybody on the stage today. We got Gaston from Meltdown. We have Felix Kinar from Comics Fix. Michael Sun from Tapastic. Mark Wade from Thrillbent. Doug Leffler from Scroll-On. Also want to thank Madefire, and again, Meltdown Comics for hosting.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Cool.
Thanks.
Buy some comics.